started? Fantastic. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the August meeting for the New Hampshire Food Access Coalition. If this is your first time here, I am Tiffany Brewster. I'm from New Hampshire Hunger Solutions. I am the Community Engagement Director, and I co-facilitate this meeting with Tara Westenheiser. Tara, if you'd like to come off mute and say hello, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, Tara Westenheiser. I'm on the backbone team for the New Hampshire Food Access Coalition with Tiffany, and I work for the Division of Public Health as the Food Access Coordinator. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I'm going to go ahead and put the agenda in the chat if you don't have it up. But today we have some really exciting things. So feel free as I'm talking to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. We're looking for your name, organization, and also if you want to put your email address in the chat. So if folks see somebody that they want to connect with, they have something to come back to and they can go looking for your information there. So today we're going to talk about the 2024 legislative session, the outcomes of that, successes and lessons learned. So it'll be a little bit more than here are the outcomes, but a little more in depth about here are some things that we picked up along the way and some wins that we really want to celebrate together. And then we're going to talk about the upcoming 2025 legislative session and talk about some proposed anti-hunger legislation and hear feedback from you about if we have identified all the issues that can be solved by state legislation that we can introduce in the 2025 legislative session. And then also have some conversation about any sort of considerations that we should have when after looking at this 2025 legislation. And of course, we're always looking to build connections and come together as partners here. So I'll invite you to also include the icebreaker in the chat to share a recent win from your personal or professional life in the chat. So I can tell you a recent win from my personal life or professional life. I should have been prepared for this icebreaker. I didn't even think of one. A recent win. Let's see. The recent win is that we have the planning. If you haven't heard me, all I talk about now is the summit. So we have introduced a date for the summit. We've opened registration. So really excited to get that underway and working towards that. So I'll talk more about that later on in the meeting, but that is a win to get that off the ground and re-attack that again this year. If you went last year, we got a lot of good feedback and heard a lot of great things, and looking forward to seeing everybody in person in October on the 25th. So last little piece, I'd love to invite anybody that's new to this meeting or hasn't been in a while that wants to come off of mute and introduce themselves to the group. I'd love to give you the time and the space to go ahead and do that now. No new folks at all. Don't be shy. Okay, if we have shy folks, that's totally okay. Oh, go ahead. I see one person come off mute. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah. So my name is Rachel Felder, and I work at the New Hampshire Food Bank. I just started in July, and I am the Nutrition Programs Coordinator. So my main role is coordinating cooking matters, but I also assist with the Summer Meals Program and the Nutrition Pantry Program.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rachel. So glad to have you here.
Yeah,
and also at the New Hampshire Food Bank. Fantastic. Any other new folks want to come off and say hello?
Hey, I just loaded in Catherine Downey from NOFA, New Hampshire, Food Access Coordinator. Sorry, my cat was screaming at me, so I didn't want to get that all over.
Good to see you, Catherine. Anybody else new or haven't been to this meeting in a while that wants to come off and say hello to the group?
I'm Cherry Sullivan, and I'm with Willing Hands.
Great to have you, Cherry. Thanks so much for coming. Any other new folks? All right, last call. I'm going to read off a few of these really amazing wins in the chat. So let's see. We have Martha just hiked the Franconia Ridge Trail with her grandkids this summer. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's definitely on the bucket list. Jason had recent win, fully staffed and ready to start operations on Tuesday at six newfound SAU 4 schools for Abby Group. Very exciting, very, very exciting, especially to be fully staffed. That's a huge win these days in schools. Let's see, what else do we have here? Megan says that her daughter just started in the toddler room at daycare. So excited and had a happy and tear-free first day. Congratulations to Megan's daughter. Jessica traveled across the country and back in 2.5 weeks with 2 one-year-old pups in a minivan and a tent. That is definitely a win. Congrats on making it back in one piece and everybody is still alive and well. Very good. Let's see. Cameron put in some things about what she can do here. Works as a project manager in food systems. And most recent win was receiving an extension on federal project she's working on. So great. Good to hear that, Cam. And then Healthy Home Plate Challenge. Yes, if you didn't go to that, then we just had that this past weekend and it was a huge success. So I'll let you read some more in the chat as we move along with the rest of the agenda today. So I'll pass it off to Tara to take us through some updates.
Thanks, Tiffany. So we'll start with some SNAP updates. I don't think anyone from DHHS is here today from the SNAP team, but I'll pause for a minute just in case someone came and I didn't see them. Okay. I think then we'll pass it over to Laura to give an update from the SNAP Coalition.
Great, thank you. The SNAP Coalition met this month with an advocate from Mass Law Reform, which is an organization that provides legal services for people in Massachusetts, and does a lot of work in the benefits area. And they many years ago implemented the Elderly Simplified Application Projects, and so we discussed lessons learned and things that we thought would work well for New Hampshire, and that was really, really helpful. And out of that, there was a discussion about members of the coalition, as well as older adults advocates and advocates for people with disabilities, meeting with the state to talk about implementation. And so that's going to happen. And as always, we encourage you to join the SNAP Coalition. We're interested in all things SNAP. But even if you don't want to join, feel free to contact us about what you're seeing in the SNAP program. We're ever trying to ease barriers to access and make more people, get more people who are eligible connected. And that's it.
Thanks, Laura. Next, I don't think we have anyone from the SNAP outreach team at the food bank, but I know they shared some updates with Tiffany. So I don't know if you want to take that over, pass it to you.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I'll maybe invite Laura. I don't know if they were able to come to the SNAP Coalition meeting, but if you have more than what's on this slide, I'm happy to talk through this slide.
I'm not. Oh, okay. I'm trying to see the slide. So I'm seeing the slide that I'm seeing is the SNAP outreach at the food bank.
Yes. Yes. So nobody from the food bank was able to attend today. I didn't know if they went to the SNAP Coalition.
You were asking about the state. I got it. Yeah, they were at the SNAP Coalition. They shared that they are helping a lot of people apply for SNAP, that they have materials that are available about SNAP and how to access it. that they're happy to share. You can see their research page there, and that's pretty much it.
Great. Any, I guess we don't necessarily can't answer questions here, but I put the link there. They are having an upcoming SNAP outreach workshop on September 5th at noon. So definitely put that on your calendars. You can use that same link that I put into the chat to register. That's their resource page. So thanks, Laura. I just didn't know if you had any more. I chatted with them. They couldn't come today. But
Not super.
I didn't get to ask you if they had come to the SNAP Coalition. So thank you for putting me on the spot there.
All right. So now we'll move on to child nutrition updates. The WIC team didn't have any new updates, but there's some good links that Tiffany will put in the chat as far as the WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program goes, and then the WIC for Community Partners page, which has a lot of great resources. And feel free to check those out. And then I will pass it over to Karen to talk about school meals and the school breakfast challenge.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Karen Rice, the Child Nutrition Manager for New Hampshire Hunger Solutions. And I'm going to share in the chat the flyer for this year's school breakfast challenge. We are still onboarding schools, but right now we have schools in about 13 different districts, which is really exciting. Last year we had about 9 schools sign up. So these are districts, and then within those districts, there's multiple schools signed up. So we do have a lot more participation this year, which is really exciting. And it's thanks to all you guys, sharing our work within the schools and the success from last year. So I just wanted to say thank you all, and please continue to share our flyer and talk about the school breakfast challenge. But yeah, so we're going to be still onboarding for the month of September, and then planning a big kickoff in October. Really encouraging more participation in the breakfast program. We have a lot of exciting partnerships this year with Cliff and New England Dairy, UNH Extension, Hannaford's. So we have some new nudges that we'll be doing with the schools and encouraging more participation with students, because that was huge last year, getting the students involved. So that's kind of our main goal, is to focus on student involvement and parent education this year. And schools can still sign on and pick a tier. There's 3 different tiers. There's the starter level, which is using the nudges 2 times a month. Nudges are just our word for kind of like marketing strategies with the schools, like doing newsletters or morning announcements, bulletin boards, things like that. And participating in webinar series. And then we also are doing building a breakfast team at the advanced level, and then expert level is going to be building a team and implementing breakfast after the bell. So we do have a few schools who have signed on to do breakfast after the bell as well. So it's really exciting. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else about the challenge. It's going to be going on until probably May next year, and then we'll still be doing, awards for the winners. And we still have to give our award at the summit for last year's winner, which was Kennett Middle School. So that'll be coming up at the summit as well to celebrate their win. So we plan to do that again for this year's winner as well. Any questions about the school breakfast challenge? I think just, if you could keep sharing the flyer and, talking about it with schools, it's great to get the word out about it. And I think it's really helped for this year's challenge because we did have schools reach out to us in interest. So very exciting. I think on the slides, there is a registration form too, if anybody's on the call that wants to register for the challenge. We are still, like I said, onboarding and setting up those meetings with schools for the next month. So moving on to CNIN, Child Nutrition Impact Network. I just wanted to mention that we do have a meeting coming up September 12th at 1:30. We're really looking for school folks to join this next meeting because we're going to be talking about some policy related to school. So we'd like some feedback. We did do some, restructuring over the summer with this group. And so we're trying to kind of make it a little bit more policy focused and having, those who are joining to share feedback with us to come up with some solutions for different barriers. So it'll be a little bit more of an interactive group than in the past. So please join if you're interested in that type of a work. Just reach out to me. We can add you to I'll put my email in the chat. We can add you to the email list to get the invite for the next meeting. And I think that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Karen, Jen, did you have a question? I saw your hand was raised.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Tara. So Karen, first of all, thank you so much for coming into Lemster. That's so wonderful. But I'm curious, one of the things I've thought about in my work here is how to better engage with school districts. So I'm curious to know if there are, suggestions you might have for outreach for the After the Bell that would make it, so we could strengthen some of the, enrollment, and if there are certain things that stand out to you about receptivity in the school districts.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think when it comes to outreach, it's definitely about sharing the data around it. And I think talking with each district or school on their needs level, because talking about, the importance of it as New Hampshire in general doesn't always hit home. So I think, we at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions do have some of that information per school. So I think, reaching out to me for that information, if anyone's curious, I wonder what my school's participation in breakfast is compared to lunch, or that type of information we have. And I think sharing that with the schools is a good way to kind of get the conversation going. But again, just like participating in any of the community events, because you never know who you're going to meet that works in the schools. And sometimes doesn't have to be a principal or, the food service director. Sometimes it can just be a teacher or a nurse, anyone that's really dedicated to this type of work and wanting to feed more children. So sometimes you never know who you're going to run into, and sharing this information or talking about the challenge and kind of what it's about. The importance of breakfast, but then how successful it's been proven to do a breakfast after the bell model. We have all of that information. So I think reaching out to me for maybe like talking points or specific school data is a good way to kind of start, and then just talking about it more and participating in those type back to school events or any community events. And I think a lot of it too has helped through a lot of the coalition work too, is going to those meetings and talking about it. And that's where we've gotten a lot of interest as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. I don't know if anyone has any more questions. She put her email in the chat, so Seems like she's willing to answer any questions offline, or you can add them to the chat. Tori shared encouraging folks to reach out to regional public health network contacts, because many work with schools on seasonal vaccine clinics, and they might be helpful in connecting you with the right people and or sharing insight. Thanks for sharing, Tori. All right, I think we can move on to the next update, which is the 2024 New Hampshire Nutrition Equity Summit. So email went out, I believe, last week. Registration is now open for the event, taking place on the 25th of October at the Grapponi Conference Center. If you are interested in joining, register today. You can also become a sponsor if that's the route you want to take as well. Does anyone, oh, thanks for putting that link in the chat. I don't know, does anyone have any questions? We're really excited, and we'll hopefully have the agenda out soon. For those of you who shared input on topics, we really appreciate the feedback. But I think that survey is closed now. Is that right, Tiffany?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I also wanted to say too that something really important to point out is that we also have community awards that will be awarded during the summit. So I can grab the link and drop that in the chat as well. It needs to be added to the website is what I'm realizing also. But it went out in an email with the announcements about the summit, and those community awards are all nominated by all of you and then voted on. Evaluated by the leadership team using evaluation criteria, and try to make it as unbiased and nominal as possible, I guess, if you will. So also to say that the Food Access Coalition leadership team is an open group for anybody that is interested in joining the leadership team for the Food Access Coalition. It helps to guide the work of the Food Access Coalition and help determine agendas, some parts of the summit planning, and guiding generally what we're doing here, why we're all convening. So if you're interested in that, I'll throw my email address in the chat, and you can send me a message. So that's all we got.
Great, thanks. And before we move on to the policy section, does anyone have, I know a few of you have been sharing information in the chat about different things and different updates, but does anyone have anything they want to come off mute and share as far as any updates or events happening?
We do have one more slide for updates if Jessica wants to.
Hi, thanks, Tiffany and Tara. So Maddie Gregg is a local New Hampshireite who is a runner, and he has offered to run from Nashua, New Hampshire to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire to raise awareness about the work that we are doing at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions in collaboration with all of you. So he's running 230 miles in 8 days with one mission to end hunger in New Hampshire. We have sponsorship opportunities to raise funds for New Hampshire Hunger Solutions and the coalition work that we're doing around the state, which also includes funds for the New Hampshire PAC. We also have event opportunities. Each day there will of the 8 days, there will be 2 events, one in the morning to kick off the school breakfast challenge in each of the areas that he's running. If you look at the logo for the New Hampshire run, you can see the race route, or his run route. Sorry, it's not a race. So he'll be, you can see where he'll be running in the state is along that white line. We are coordinating schools that are joining the school breakfast challenge to highlight the work that those schools are doing. And then in the evening, we will be talking about policy work, how you can get involved to advocate, and we will be inviting legislators to those meetings And we will be also highlighting the coalition work at those meetings. So there'll be different opportunities for their community organizations to join us, talk about their work and how they're working to end hunger in New Hampshire, or get people connected to the supports that they need to be lifted up out of poverty. So if that's housing, if it's other, food pantries, other direct services, we want to raise awareness of the work that we're all doing. So reach out to me. I made a quick update with my email on it, but I don't see it on this slide. So I think I just did it to the live version and not the saved version. I'll just throw my email in the chat if you want to get involved. We could definitely use all hands on deck. So I will put that in the chat and stay tuned. I will be sending out very shortly sponsorship opportunities. And we have created some opportunities where you can sponsor both the New Hampshire Hunger Run and the New Hampshire Nutrition Equity Summit.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. And now I think we'll turn it over to Brody to give us some legislative updates. Oh, one more slide. Tiffany, I'll just pass it to you.
This is just a list of the all of the most of the regional coalitions. Apologies if there's any missing off of here. Most of the regional coalitions in their regular meeting times that are occurring each month. So if you are not involved in your regional or local coalition, highly recommend becoming involved in these coalitions. And a few of these are also statewide, the Child Nutrition Impact Network and the SNAP Coalition. So certainly take a look at this slide and get connected. Some of these you can connect through us, and then other ones are managed by other folks, and you can connect through there. So that's the last bit on that. And then just a pause for any other updates that anybody would like to provide.
Thanks. I just put the 2 flyers in the chat. One this upcoming Monday on Labor Day, we're having an immigration discussion with Ro Khanna, if anyone's interested. And if you could share it with your circles, that would be awesome. And then also on the 12th, a regular Welcoming New Hampshire table meeting is going to be around keeping families together. USCIS officer John McCarthy is going to be talking about what it's all about and how to apply and what folks need to know. And I put my email in as well in case if anyone has any questions or not on our mailing list.
Any other questions or updates that anybody would like to provide? Colleen, did you want to chat at all about what you put in the chat there?
Yes, I do. So does my dog, apparently. I just put it in the chat, our Network Cafe series that the New Hampshire Food Alliance hosts every September through April. We host it every month. It's starting up again on September 6th, so next Friday. I put the registration link in the chat, and our first cafe is going to be an update on this New Hampshire Food and Agriculture Strategic Plan, which is humming along, and we have some really exciting updates for everybody and ways to get involved and have your voice be included in that. So definitely recommend joining us on Friday.
Thanks, Colleen. Any last questions or updates? Yes. All right, now we segue into the 2024 session review. So as needed, I believe that we have both Laura and Brody chatting about 2024 and 2025. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany, and appreciate everyone's attendance on today's call. Today's legislative update is going to be a little bit different because we'll be talking about successes and lessons learned too. So kind of a recap of everything that we've been advocating for and what kinds of things we can take away from last year's process that will inform us for next year's process. And so as we introduce each meeting, we have our keys here. So our bill positions, whether or not we support or oppose the bill. We have like the idea is that there's a stoplight, so red, yellow, green. Red means it's stalled. Well, red means it's ended there. Yellow means it's stalled. Green means it went. I also put an X mark when it skips a step in the process to not confuse people. And then we also have, the sad face, the frowny face, and the happy face, so solid, slow down, success. And obviously there are places, again, where it might skip in the process because of procedural things. So if we go to the next slide. Our first bill is Senate Bill 499, the Hunger-Free New Hampshire Act. Senate Bill 499, as many of you remember, was a comprehensive anti-hunger legislation that increased access to existing federal nutrition programs. When it ended up passing through the legislature, though, it was only summer EBT, now called Sunbooks, in the Adult Elderly Simplified Application Project. It's actually the Elderly Adult Simplified Application Project, ESAP for SNAP. So some things that we learned is that we formed some unlikely alliances with some key Republican legislators. Many of them, though, aren't running for re-election. So it's good that we have sympathetic ears from partners across the aisle. We had record-breaking engagement from advocates, which really helped us raise awareness with those Republican legislators and the entire legislature as a whole. We also were able to increase a lot of understanding around other school feeding methods like breakfast after the bell or programs like the community eligibility provision. So all in all, it was a great, even though we only got 2 of the about 10 policies we're advocating for, it was a lot of great ground softening. And so lessons learned where there's a lot more education that we need to provide to the legislature on these policies so they can better understand it. Some of that's on us, that we can do more advocacy or even just direct lobbying, Laura and myself. Some of it's also on the legislature. They did some weird procedural things where, like, for example, the House didn't even review 5 of the policies at any point at a public hearing or in the finance committee. They just kind of were like, we don't want to really address those. So those are things that we can't control, but what we can control is trying to, kind of head that off from the beginning and meet with those leaders in the legislature who make those decisions. So next, definitely we want folks to get the word out about summer EBT, summer meals in general. We want to work with the Department of Health and Human Services to implement and get the word out about ESAP. And in 2025, we have major goals to pass legislation to feed more kids in New Hampshire. If we go to the next slide. We also had House Bill 1212, which would have increased eligibility for free meals in the state of New Hampshire to 350% of the federal poverty guidelines. This bill did not make it through the House. It kind of had, it made it through the House floor vote once, but the second time, due to cost, it didn't survive. Sit down. So some of our successes is the awareness of shortcomings of the current eligibility criteria. And, a lot of the reason why legislators introduced this bill was to kind of show that the state was willing to fund school vouchers at a certain amount, but wasn't willing to consider feeding children in public schools. And so kind of showing that there's a disparity in some of the programs that the state is offering and promoting versus existing programs, and how there's not as much eligibility, not as much funding. So it made it to the House floor once, and it made it through, which we didn't anticipate. And so that was a success in and of itself. And there was a lot of education and a lot of political points that were made with this bill. And so, there's a good chance that bills like this can make it through the legislative process in the future. If we have a Democratic majority, or even if there's still slim margins, we manage to convince some Republicans of the merits of policies like these. So we're going to continue advocating for existing federal programs that will expand access to school meals for the granite state. And we're going to keep continuing to work towards universal no-cost meals for all. If we could go to the next slide. Senate Bill 351, that was a success, even though it was killed because it was a bill that we opposed. It would have made it much more difficult for the state's ability to temporarily waive work requirements for able-bodied adults age 18 to 15, not living with children under the SNAP program. This bill didn't even make it out of committee. It went to interim study immediately. They studied it, and I haven't really read the study. There should be a study floating around somewhere, though, but I don't think the results of the study were positive in favor of the policy, either of making it harder for these the state's ability to waive these work requirements. And lessons learned is that legislators, when we educated them about and especially our advocates who sent emails about this topic, that we shouldn't punish people who are looking for work and just unable to find jobs because of economic circumstances, that they still need access to be successful in the workforce and in finding a job. And then also we were able to call out some of the influence of forces outside of the state that poorly understand New Hampshire and are trying to cast doubt on the success of the SNAP program in the state and the state's how well the state has kind of administered it, and some of these temporary work requirements, being able to waive those. So I want to continue to be diligent in identifying and opposing all attempts to make it harder for eligible people to access SNAP. And we've seen bipartisan support for making sure that people who are eligible can access the program, and making sure that when the state applies temporary work, temporarily waive work requirements, that that they're doing so all within the federal rules. If we go to the next slide. Senate Bill 403, we at New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, we weren't the direct, we weren't the point person on this. It was mostly New Futures and by state primary care. But we still had a lot of, there's a lot of merit and important policies in this bill that that we care about, specifically funding for and certification for community healthcare workers. We're really important providing wraparound services to their patients, or to people in the community, like connecting them to food access programs like SNAP and WIC. And so we really were able to show how important a healthcare workforce is to identifying food insecurity and helping people access food in their communities. And it gives greater credibility to community healthcare worker profession and may help identify the need for more of them throughout the state. And so we also learned that the healthcare sector can be a great advocate and a great ally for hunger advocacy too. So we want to keep working with our partners to support healthcare outreach to connect people with the resources that they need to be healthy. And in our case, nutrition access. We go to the next slide. Senate Bill 337, I'll be very brief about this. This bill was just something that was left out from the omnibus legislation. If you remember, the New Futures took the point on with Senator Whitley back a few years ago. It just directed the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification to establish a voluntary certification process for dual and lactation service providers. We followed this bill to make sure there are no hiccups along the process, and because there might be people in the breastfeeding space who are very passionate about this policy. It's going to increase awareness about the services offered by dual and lactation providers, and there's a lot of broad support for the bill. And also it's really an equity issue too. People on Medicaid, they weren't able to get reimbursed for these services, or their coverage plans wouldn't cover dual or lactation service providers who weren't certified or licensed by the state. That's a federal requirement. So now there's going to be a broader pool of people of all incomes who are going to be able to access these services. And lessons learned is sometimes there aren't lessons. Sometimes things go as planned. As you can see all the green on the right side of the screen. There was no opposition at any point along this process. I don't think there was a single legislator that actually voted against this bill. It was pretty, foregone conclusion. So we're going to continue, though, to support equitable access to healthcare and proper nutrition for all granite staters, as we always do. And I think this is the last one on our list. And if anyone from New Hampshire Farmer Schools on the call, definitely I would encourage them to weigh in after I cover this briefly. But this was the Local Food for Local Schools Reimbursement Pilot Program, which is a pilot program for New Hampshire Farm to School. 10 schools, each one in the 10 different counties, will have the opportunity to show proof of concept of how well farm to school can work in New Hampshire, and what kinds of funding that the state can provide to promote that. And it's gonna, we definitely increase a lot of understanding to farm to school programs in the state this year by passing this policy, getting it through both chambers, being able to talk to legislators and convince them to supporting at least a pilot program. And the personal connections saved from this bill, they definitely were going to help us be able to leverage those connections with future legislative efforts. So it's good lessons learned is it's always good to start small in the legislature with new programs, because once you can prove that, the proof of concept and everything, and that's going to really help legislators justify making the investment. The agency support goes a long way. We're able to work with the Department of Agriculture, who's been extremely supportive of Farm to School, and they were very helpful in helping us get this policy passed. And we were able to keep making sure that it's not over till it's over. This has been a policy that's floated around in the policy world and in the legislature for a few years. So finally getting our, camel's nose under the tent has been a really great benefit to promoting for the state, promoting Farm to School throughout New Hampshire. And so what's next? Support outreach to schools when applications open, which I believe is going to be this fall, and continue to support access to healthy local food for children in public schools, again, as New Hampshire FAC always does. If anyone, though, from Farm to School is on the call and would like to weigh in, definitely feel free. I'll wait a minute.
Hey, Brody, it's Stacy. Thanks for that. I don't have a lot of new information yet. Again, we're going to be working with the Department of Ag on developing the application for schools, getting that application out sometime this fall, selecting schools to participate, and then launching the program in January.
All really exciting. Thank you, Stacy.
I did want to also add a few background to some of these pieces where the personal connection saved the bill from becoming a bargaining chip. They were going to use this for the non-germane amendment, so adding a bunch of other bills to it as the bargaining chip. And so Brody, I think, caught wind of this and made a phone call and said, please don't do it. Please don't do it. So whenever those sorts of things are occurring, we definitely try and leverage all the relationships we have to find that information out and also stop it before it happens. And also to say that it's not over till it's over. At some point, this bill was voted down, and then they brought it back in the same voting session and re-voted on it. And we're able to bring it back alive, essentially. So this whole process was fraught with, oh gosh, it's all done, and then it wasn't. And also, for those that don't know, this is several years in the making of lots of effort from lots of different organizations, and lots of effort, especially by Stacy and partners there. So just wanted to throw a little bit more out about those things and things for others to know as you bring bills forward, how we can help with that. Go ahead, Brody.
So here's a brief summary of everything. You can see we've had a few bills that have been signed by the governor this year, which is great to see. So the only really failure that we had was, well, I won't call it a failure. The only setbacks that we had were Senate Bill 499. We didn't get everything, but we still got some things, and the governor signed the bill. We didn't get House Bill 1212, but that's okay. We can always go for another bite at the apple. But everything else was a success. The policies were mostly kept intact, and the governor signed it into law. And we're happy to work with the departments and stakeholders to make sure these policies are implemented and to help expand these policies too, if needed in the future. So that's really exciting. And here's just a grassroots advocacy update. We broke the 10,000 number for emails sent. So last year, I want to say we sent about somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 emails total. So this year, we're definitely knocking it out of the park. And this doesn't even include that we're going to be asking you all to send emails once our policies become public to some of your local legislators to do some ground softening probably in the fall, early winter. We have 523 advocates who have taken action on, at different parts along the way, different steps. We've contacted 316 state legislators. And to give you an idea, there's 424 of them. So we haven't contacted all of them, but historically, we usually only reach about 200 to 225. So this year, we were able to connect with an additional 100 state legislators. That's really important. And again, we've had 226 people contact the governor. That's about how much we usually have contact the governor. Usually we contact the governor when it comes to different programs that his departments could implement that they're kind of wavering on whether or not to implement them. And that's extremely helpful advocacy too. Not this summer, but the previous summer. That's how we got the state to participate in summer EBT. So that's extremely important. Reach out to the governor about those programs and making sure that our state's leveraging state dollars to access additional federal dollars to invest in communities and people's nutrition.
You know, I have to weigh in, Brody. Just have to say, community engagement perspective here, this is incredible. All of these bills that we just went through and that we had so much success on, we attribute to that to all of you. More than 500 of you. I mean, that's incredible for such a small state to have such incredible engagement on these advocacy issues. I'm blown away by all of your support and all of your enthusiasm, and 10,000, that's a huge number, huge number. So we're really looking forward to 2025. Really excited about how 2024 went, and all of this success we attribute straight to all of you, all of the partners of the Food Access Coalition. So bravo, and you should all be celebrating yourselves.
I'll point out two things. This is the first year also we've had every county filled up
Mm-hmm.
on our map, one of the first years, and our per capita outreach in some of our more rural counties are actually really high if you think about it. Like Carroll County, there's only about 50,000 people that live there, but you have almost 1,000 people reached out. So that's actually, that means, you know, that's really impressive. So that means we're really raising awareness, not just in Concord, but across the state, with coalitions and people in school districts and all sorts of folks. So really exciting. And if you want to get more involved in our policy and advocacy through the New Hampshire FAC, we do have a policy and advocacy team. We have a mission, increasing advocacy for food access related policies in New Hampshire. So helping all of our advocates be able to have the knowledge, the education, the understanding of, you know, what point in the process we are, what exactly to do, what's the most effective way to do outreach, and to help plan that outreach. And then we have a vision, which is state policymakers understand and work to implement policies to increase food access in New Hampshire. So we kind of work as like a group that plans different events or different initiatives, or just discusses what's the best way to go about policy advocacy at this point in the process, whether it's at a committee hearing, scheduling and trying to get people there to speak in person, or phone banking, you know, making calls to key legislators before a House vote. Really important stuff that helps bolster our advocacy and helps raise awareness about our advocacy too, because a lot of people on our team will go back to other coalitions, housing, homelessness, different advocacy groups in their local area or statewide, and share our work. And that's really important also. So is there any questions before we start talking about different policies that we've identified for next year? I'd love to have a discussion, because otherwise you're going to have to listen to me talk for another probably 10 to 15 minutes.
You're just so thorough, Brody. There's no questions.
So I'm hoping I'm not talking people to sleep though. Okay, so now we have our 2025 New Hampshire legislative session, the problems and proposed policy solutions that we at Hunger, so this is what we at Hunger Solutions have identified as food access problems and proposed solutions that we want to bring to the table. And obviously at the end of this, we want your feedback, and we also want other stakeholders or other people on the call, New Hampshire FAC partners, members, whatever term we use again, to bring what they have on their mind to the table, whether it's just an idea or a firm set policy that your organization or another coalition in some other space is ready to advocate for that is related to food access in the state of New Hampshire. So first, the barriers of food access in New Hampshire and what data demonstrates need. So here's some few data points from our website and from FRAC that we've kind of identified that shows where is there need in the state of New Hampshire. So we're third from the bottom of the nation in school breakfast participation. Fewer than half of children already enrolled in free and reduced price lunch actually access breakfast in school. It's estimated more than 10,000 children are eligible but not enrolled in free and reduced price meals. There's a multi-tiered system for school that creates stigma and keeps children from the nutrition that they need to thrive in school. And that essentially means we have children who access free meals, children who access reduced price meals, children who access at cost meals. And so we have these different subcategories when in reality, we should be viewing food the same way we view transportation, the school building, books, pencils. Access to nutrition is essential for learning and for children's health and well-being in school, just like every other resource that we provide to them for free at no cost. We have 103 schools that are eligible to participate in the community eligibility program. Again, federal program that allows school districts or schools provide no cost meals, so free meals to every student in their building. But only 2 are participating this year. That's a huge gap that needs to be closed. Most schools don't have online applications for free and reduced price meals. They're depending on children to take those applications home to parents and bring it back to school, or for parents to drive to an SAU office, which in the case of like my school district, an SAU office can sometimes be 30, 40, 45 minutes away from your home. So that creates a lot of barriers, especially for working parents who have limited time and schedules and are trying to balance everything else their child wants to do. That's even extracurricular activities. Average daily participation in summer meals went down in New Hampshire 71% between 2021 and 2022 when the pandemic waivers ended. So that's a huge issue. Access to meal when children aren't in school in the summer months is it's really down, but the need is still there. We're seeing need increase. And only 31% of eligible people are currently enrolled in SNAP. So we need to close that SNAP gap. So those are some of the things data that we know exists that helps us say, okay, these are the problems that we need to address this year and obviously future years. And a lot of these issues have been persisting and some of them are kind of becoming new, like summer meals being down 71%. That's a very alarming statistic that's putting a lot of stress on the charitable food system and on families, on families' food finances at home. Go to the next slide.
Brody, you have a question from Jane?
Oh, I do. Oh yeah, hey Jane.
Hi, so I'm just curious about the CEP, the Community Eligibility Program, how we find out if we have schools within our area that are eligible, because I'm just imagining in Nashua there must be some.
Yeah, so the way that you identify that is it's an identified student percentage. So it's the percentage of the students in your school who are directly certified for free and reduced price meals. So if they participate in TANF, McKinney-Vento, Migrant, they get directly certified in school meals. And I believe the number right now, the Fed said, is 25%. So if you have 25% or more of an identified student population, then you would qualify. But I would really encourage you to reach out to the New Hampshire Department of Education, learn more and figure out, how exactly you can implement the program in your community. Jessica, you want to weigh in on it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Jane, we have numbers from 2023-24 school year that we can share with you. So I'll reach out to you. We can chat about what that looks like for Nashua. There are several schools in the district that are eligible, but it does become complicated when we get to the school funding formula. So this is some of the stuff we're working on with schools, is like educating their administrators how to implement the program and getting them connected to the DOE so that they can get any of their school funding questions answered.
The DOE does, sorry to jump in there, the DOE does maintain lists of the schools and the districts that are eligible for community eligibility, and I'll put those links in the chat in a minute.
Okay, thank you. I'm just a curiosity because we have meals for kids that we do for dinners and we're adding breakfast, but I just like to have like a double check against some of those schools that we're pretty much in all the schools, well, 13 of them, but a lot of these I know have to be eligible for this. Just based on like Title I. I think it's is that what it is? Title I standing?
That's not how the eligibility is measured, but it does roughly correlate to, Title I schools tend to be high poverty schools, as high schools with high identified student percentage also. So.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Sure.
So is there anything that we missed regarding need in the state of New Hampshire? So we kind of want to kick it back to you real briefly to put some things in the chat to kind of, tell us, hey, this is a statistic or something that we've identified as an issue, whether it's locally or statewide. Nationally is a little bit different. We're advocating, a lot of our advocacy is for state policy, but if you have a federal policy idea, we're always happy to see if we can contact our local delegation about it, but definitely put something to the chat. I'm going to try to read if there's anything already in the chat.
The only comment relevant, I put a little precursor to it in the chat so that people could start thinking about it. But Joanne put something about this isn't focused on New Hampshire policy, but we are dependent on national policy and some concern over Project 2025 and the results of the election and how that might impact CEP and summer meals. So we will talk a little bit about some federal policy, but those are really good points, Joanne, to bring up, and something that federal policy is it's a little more challenging because we don't have a wide representation in New Hampshire. And there, of course, the currently elected delegates are well aware of us and the work that we do, and also on board with all the policies that we advocate for. But our hands are a little bit limited here in New Hampshire. But I don't know if you want to say anything more, Laura, about federal.
Yes, I mean, I would say that our delegation isn't on the committees that are the most helpful to move nutrition policy, although they do absolutely, we do absolutely meet with them regularly and keep them informed of the ways that they can help to move legislation.
Yeah, it's sobering for those who, this Project 2025 is 922 pages. So, you're not going to pick it up easily, but the chapter on agriculture really goes into the language of reducing eligibility. They do not want free and reduced meals for all. They want to eliminate CEP. Summer meals is framed only for the child who's enrolled in summer school. So it's really sobering, but it places the November time all the more important. And I do agree, our work here is on New Hampshire policy, but if they change CEP and they change free and reduced meals, that does have a ripple effect. So thanks. And I know you work hard with our state reps.
Yeah, and Project 2025 advocates gutting many of the entitlement programs, including SNAP.
Right.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none.
Jump in and say, I know that we put I'll let you go on. Sorry.
You're fine, Laura. Yeah, let's definitely, because I don't know how much, we only have about 30 minutes left. We want to make sure that we get into some of the activity. So federal policy solutions, underway and resources, just a brief quick slide. We want to make sure we protect and strengthen SNAP and the Farm Bill. This is always an ongoing effort, as highlighted by Joanne and Laura. There's always folks who want to question the efficacy of the SNAP program or try to make it harder for people to access SNAP. We always want to make sure that SNAP is not just the way it currently is, but easier for people to access and more effective to help people access the nutrition that they need. Children nutrition program.
Sorry, and that the benefits for SNAP are not just kept current with inflation, but also reflect the actual food costs. So it's really about making sure that people can actually meet their food needs using SNAP benefits.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Child nutrition programs, we mentioned, school meal programs, make sure they're fully funded, make Medicaid direct certification a requirement. Currently it's optional for states to participate. It's been tough to get New Hampshire to take that policy up, so it might be easier for the feds to just require it. The majority of states now are participating. And also protecting the community eligibility provision, which allows school districts to make a local decision, decide whether or not to provide free school meals to all their students. You can see by increasing the multiplier, that's more the minutia of the exact policy, but community eligibility provision is a very important way for us to get to universal meals in the state of New Hampshire. It allows us to show proof of concept in each individual school district that qualifies and does participate. So those 103 schools, they're going to be very important to trying to help us show how universal meals can really impact a community in children's nutrition and health. And then there's other anti-hunger policies that you can see linked there, but we want to make sure that those policies don't get passed, because then it makes it harder for people to access the nutrition they need to survive and thrive. But now I'm going to get into some of the state policy solutions that we're going to be taking up this year. So Hunger Solutions is really looking at these proposed state policy solutions. So Medicaid direct certification, we've been trying to get this passed for a few years, but it's directly certifies children whose families' incomes qualify them for free and reduced price meals who are on Medicaid without their family having to fill out another form. Streamlines the process, makes it easier for school administrative staff and families to access the food that they need. We want to use Medicaid enrollment to measure poverty in the state school funding formula, in addition to using the existing free and reduced price meal enrollment. This is going to help us capture, a larger student population that does qualify for free and reduced price meals, but may not participate or fill out the form. That's really important to helping schools get the funding that they need. And it's also going to make it easier for us to implement CEP on the local level with school districts. And if anyone wants to contact me, I could get more into that. That's a whole presentation unto itself about how the funding formula impacts CEP and how, making these systems changes is going to make it easier for schools to adopt CEP and also benefit schools to get the funding that they deserve. We want to require all schools offer breakfast and lunch. That's currently not a requirement in the state of New Hampshire. We think every public school should be offering every student the opportunity to get a breakfast and a lunch during the school day. We also want to require schools to have online application for free and reduced price school meals. Last estimate that I saw was about 12 to 20 school districts actually did this, offered an online application. So we want to hope that every school district offers an online application, which makes it much easier for working families to be able to apply and receive these benefits that they qualify for. If we're going to go to the next slide. We want to make it easier for schools who qualify for the USDA community eligibility provision to qualify and to participate, which would allow high poverty schools to offer free meals to all. Want to ensure that children up to 200% of the federal poverty level can eat a free lunch at school. So this would essentially get rid of the reduced price category. And so every child who is receiving a reduced price meal would now be getting a free meal, and then we'd be capturing an additional 15%. Why 200%? That was a recommendation from Republicans on a study committee that studied Medicaid direct certification and increasing meals to 350% of the federal poverty level. They came back and said, let's do 200% of the federal poverty level, because that's what people can qualify for SNAP, up to 200%. So we think that this actually might be a pretty easy, low-level, low-hanging fruit policy to get passed this year. Incentivizing schools to offer breakfast after the bell, so providing some startup costs and grants, and then helping more schools offer summer meals programs. So again, addressing some of the labor costs and the needs, and making sure that school districts and local community organizations are supported in the summer meals programs. And so the impact of these policy solutions, so I kind of, I'll go over very briefly, but more children will be enrolled in federal school meal programs. Offering breakfast and lunch to every public school student is going to increase their access to nutrition, improve their health, well-being, academic performance. Online school meal applications remove a barrier for families, as I've mentioned. Increasing eligibility for free and reduced price school meals to 200%. It's going to help families and schools feed more children nutritious school meals. It's going to help more families access the nutrition that they need, and help alleviate their already overburdened home budgets. Breakfast after the bell is going to increase school breakfast participation. As you saw earlier, Karen Rice mentioned from our team how the school breakfast challenge is doing that, and how breakfast after the bell, the schools who have adopted that in the school breakfast challenge, that's been an integral part of increasing their school breakfast participation. We want to make sure that the state's incentivizing that mode of breakfast offering. We also want to make sure that children can access nutrition meals in the summer months when school isn't in session, because nutritional needs doesn't end once the school year ends, and doesn't begin once the school year begins. It's a persistent need that everyone has. It's innate. So we go to the next slide. Just some continued things. We want to make sure reason for updating the school funding formula to add Medicaid as a measure for poverty is it's going to help us decouple school funding from food access, which will help us pass more policies to help children access nutritious school meals. We think the free and reduced price meal applications, that those should be dedicated to making sure children are accessing that program and food. It shouldn't be tied to school funding. And there are better ways to measure poverty in school districts or in schools that are more accurate, have a better reflection of the number of students who are in those income brackets, and is going to make it so then it's easier for school districts to receive the funding that they need to serve those students. So by decoupling it, it doesn't make it so then these issues are mutually exclusive. It makes it so then both of these issues can be better addressed: school funding and access to nutrition. And we want more schools to participate in the community eligibility provision, so helping high poverty schools offer free meals to all students. That's a huge goal of ours. And that also is the community eligibility provision has been difficult to get schools to uptake because of the school funding formula, the fear that once we offer free meals to everyone, they're not going to want to fill out the forms. So by using Medicaid as an additional measure, there's a very good chance that we'll be able to make sure that that isn't an issue anymore. If we could go to the next slide, I think we're about at the end. Oh, and how can you make an impact? So get involved, as I mentioned earlier, join the New Hampshire FACT policy and advocacy team. We're always happy to have discussion in these meetings, but there's additional discussions that happen at those meetings that we have pretty throughout the month, definitely during the policy season. So from January to June, and we meet a little bit less frequently in the summer unless we're planning events. Go vote. Voting has a major impact on these policies because that's who the policymakers that we're going to be working with are. Talk with candidates in your area and be like, do you support these policies? And if so, how can I help you advocate for them on the campaign trail? Or how can I educate you more on them? And if not, why? And convince them to support the policies. And sign up for our email list for regular updates. I put it in the slides in 2 places. So definitely that's going to help us with our advocacy. It's also going to help you understand where different policies are in the process and learn more about them. And I think that's it.
Brody, if I can just jump in and say that the New Hampshire Hunger Solutions, the priorities that we've listed are still draft priorities because it's all going to depend on what happens in November. So stay tuned. We will keep you posted, but just know that while we'd love to pass all of these, it may or may be more or less likely depending on what happens in New Hampshire. I mean, what happens in November. Yes, in New Hampshire.
Awesome. So we have probably about 20 minutes left here. I want to get people into breakout rooms so we can have some discussion. I do see Megan put something in the chat here that if anyone is looking to engage with candidates on the issues this cycle, feel free to contact her at SCAN. She put her email in the chat. So thank you, Megan, for that resource. And I do want to pause in case anybody needs any clarifying questions about the legislation. I am going to share a 1-pager on this, again, preliminary policy, and this will help to just give you a whole summary and 1-page look at all of the things. But go ahead and come off mute if you have any questions about all these policy solutions proposed. Or put them in the chat. All right. So I'm going to say it again. We're going to go into breakout rooms. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to restart the slides because I've made a few changes here. So breakout rooms, breakout rooms, breakout rooms. So if you're going to go, then go. I know that a lot of people don't feel comfortable maybe or don't want to participate in breakout rooms. So if you're going to drop off, feel free to drop off now so that we know how many breakout rooms to make. but we do want to hear your feedback. So please stay. And we want to hear about what your thoughts are about this policy solution. So we do have the one pager, so you don't have to remember all the things and feel put on the spot here. I put that in the chat. Feel free to open it and use that as a reference. So we have these key questions for you. Are there any policy solutions that we're missing? So we talked about some of the issues that we're seeing. Is there any policy solutions that we should be considering that we haven't even thought of? What are the potential roadblocks or bumps that you can foresee with these policy solutions that we propose? Thinking about, are there any key partners, which kind of plays into the next question, but key partners that need to be engaged in building this and writing the legislation, different roadblocks that we didn't foresee. There was some legislation last year that we proposed that there were some limitations due to federal policy that we weren't really aware of. So things that we need to consider in any of this proposed legislation. And then key partners that need to be engaged in the writing and the advocacy of this policy. So I want to make sure that we're engaging as many folks as possible. So it looks like we may have gone ahead and lost the folks that are going to be lost, but we do have for our facilitators, we have in the slides where we can take notes on all of these questions. What I'm going to do is say that folks can leave from the breakout rooms because I want to give you optimal time to be in the breakout rooms, and folks can just leave as needed. So we won't come back as a group. And we'll say, see you in September for the next coalition meeting, the Food Access Coalition meeting. And I'm going to put the meeting slides in the chat here so that our facilitators, room facilitators, will be able to access those. So you should have about 4 to 5 people per room. I'm going to create the breakout rooms. Does anybody have any questions before you head out? Room 1 is going to be Tara, and room 2 is going to be Laura. 3 is going to be Brody, and we only have 4 rooms, so room 4 will be Jessica. So I'm just going to stop sharing and make sure that we have everything good to go as we've lost people. And I'll open the breakout rooms in just a second here. It's always tricky when people leave, and then I have to move folks around. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. All right, opening rooms now. Have fun.